Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything that I say in reaction to these TV shows is completely speculative based on very little information that the producers deem to show us. We don't necessarily really know the real people, but we use it as a jumping off point to think about ourselves. Let's watch.
Okay.
For you therapists out there in particular, and really maybe all clinicians out there who are helpers of other human beings, a primary component in positive outcomes with your clients is empathy, meaning and sympathy, the ability, positive regard, the ability to believe in people, the ability to know what they're going through and to feel for them, to feel sorry for them, to feel bad for them, not pity, not looking down on them, but human to human of like, oh, that looks tough. And wow, instead of just distancing yourself and going like, oh, he is crying right now, let's move on. It's important, particularly if you're a therapist, to really have a heart and to open yourself up to what's happening. Complicating factors to that empathy, that is a well-researched, evidence-based factor in positive outcomes for therapists, by the way, and clients. Positive outcomes for clients. A complicating factor to empathy is judgment, and one of the fast roads to judgment is when we see two people fighting, because we have this tendency, and I have seen this in a lot of emails and comments, maybe not on this channel, but in other places, where people who watch this show instantly, in my observation, it's highly prevalent, they decide who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. We kind of saw that with Gino and Jasmine, actually, where in the very beginning, Gino was kind of scapegoated a little bit, but then quickly Jasmine became scapegoated, because she's so controlling. And then when he arrived in Panama, she's yelling about decorating the house, and you're like, oh yeah, Jasmine, whoa. And then people start saying, well, maybe Gino isn't that bad. Then the nude photo, okay, Gino's the a-hole, and Jasmine, I really feel for her. This is lay public, fine. But honestly, I wish everyone could kind of do this, because you can look at Mike. So this is what my big point is. You can look at Mike and see someone who has a tendency for intimate partner aggression, which we've seen. We don't know if it was trumped up. We don't know if it was edited badly. It's hard to imagine that it was completely fabricated, but we don't know. But at least what we saw last week was a tendency, when pushed into a corner, to to start to be aggressive verbally, to refuse to leave the house, to sort of force himself on other people, on her, to not listen to her. Anyway, so we can say that, and we can look at that and say, that's not good. That's immoral. It's harmful. We know what's behind that. We know so many other people who are suffering currently and in the past and in the future from people who are perpetrators like this. We don't know to what extent Mike has done it. We don't know if he's ever done it before. We don't know if he'll ever do it again. We don't know. But when we see that, we appropriately look at that and say, not good. We can also, at the same time, hold on to empathy and compassion for him. He's a human being. He's not a monster from outer space. He is in pain. He is being dumped. Everything is being erased from his future. His wife, his family, his stepsons, who he, I think, genuinely loves, his mother-in-law, his sister-in-law, the whole lifestyle is just his future potential biological kids with Ximena, being accepted, being loved, being liked, having a life, having a family, having a crew, having a tribe, people in your corner. All that is just erased. Just like that. He not only loses Ximena, but he loses everything, all the things, all the future, everything. That is incredibly hard. And on a good day with not a traumatic childhood and past, you are going to feel like crap. You are going to feel like you are worthless. It happens. He has, I think, a lifetime of reasons to believe that he is he's not worthless, but he exhibits that kind of behavior, and he talks about how he hasn't dated. Was he bullied? Was he made fun of? Was he rejected? I don't know, but something happened where he avoided dating, I think. I think is what he has said. So the depths of sadness and despair and demoralization that he is going through right now is tremendous. And I feel for him, and I feel bad for him. And if I were with him, I would listen to him and be compassionate towards him. If he asked me, or if it seemed relevant, I would say, that doesn't justify what you did earlier. You can't do that. That's not okay. And as a therapist, that's my style and not every therapist is like this. And I want to give therapists out there this option. You can be compassionate. You can literally be loving towards your client at the same time, and really create that space. And at the same time, acknowledging when your client is being immoral, when they do something. A client might come to me and be like this about having cheated on their spouse. And I will listen to, and they'll be like, I can't believe I did that. I'm so ashamed. Something wrong with me. And I'll hear that, and I'll listen, and I'm 100% in their corner. And I will say, and we just have to remind ourselves what you did was wrong, and it wasn't a mistake. You didn't just accidentally fall on top of that person and have sex. You made several choices, and we have to look at that, and that's okay. We can talk about that, but I'm not going to shy away from that as your therapist. It's important that you look at that, not to shove your face in it and shame yourself. Shame is the mind killer. Anxiety, fear is the mind killer, and shame is the mind killer. Shame is the soul killer. And but we have to look at it, because that's what happened. You did that, and no shame, but guilt. Let's look at it. You did something wrong, and at the same time, I have compassion for you. I'm with you. I accept you. I accept you and your immorality. That is the key to healing, I think, and change, is that when we commit immoral acts, we need someone that will accept us regardless, but also not be in denial of the fact that we did those things. And it's also true with parenting. I'm really going on a lot of tangents. But by the way, I think the reason why is because I went to Anaheim, to California, to Disneyland with, you might have seen the post, and for a number of days, 5 days or something, with Umberto. Actually, Umberto gave me, I think for Christmas or my birthday, he gave me tickets to go to Disneyland, so we all went down. Anyway, point is that I couldn't watch this because I was in Disneyland the day that this came out. Normally I watch it the day it comes out. In fact, I watch it on Discovery, right? The morning it comes out on Sundays. But I couldn't do that for the first time in a long time. And so it's been a long time since I've actually been home. It's the first vacation I went on. I don't know if anyone cares about this. This is the first vacation I've been on, just in terms of getting just away from work, since before the pandemic. So it's been 2 years that I have been pretty much working 7 days a week. I'm not like breaking I just sit in this office and yammer into a camera and a microphone. So it's not like I'm digging a ditch or something. But the point is that that's a big deal, right? It's kind of like, and I was around so many people, me and Stacy and Umberto and everyone else, we were around so many human beings. Like, being on an airplane was a trip. And I know some of you have been traveling throughout the pandemic, but for me, it was I've been pretty buttoned up about everything and safe. And because I don't have to travel. And so this is, but now that Omicron is going away and BA2 doesn't seem, and the other variant doesn't seem to be on the rise, we're all fully vaxxed up. I'm going to get my fourth actually soon because I qualify. But anyway, and then being in Disneyland, just around, I don't know how many tens of hundreds of thousands of people that I was in close contact. It's a crowded place. You're on rides, you're in these little rooms. Of course, we wore masks, around. Not everyone was wearing masks, but So I think because I have not been working and have not been making any videos or any podcasts, audio podcasts, I got a lot of stuff to say. A lot of statements are building up inside of me, and I'm kind of excited to be back. So I think that's why I'm yammering.
Lo siento mucho. Me duelen los dos.
Point is, they're both hurting, and the mom is there to, comfort both of them, which is great. And I feel good about, I'm proud, or I see a lot of health in both at this moment. Ximena is just like, she could be doing a lot of things, but she's sitting there and she's just like, I'm guessing for Ximena, she's like, well, I don't want to be in the same room as him, but I probably should because I am breaking up with him and he'll be gone soon and all this will be over. For Mike, it's tearing him apart. He's sad. I think Ximena's really sad too. She gave up something too. I haven't been highlighting that. I don't know if she was as invested. I don't think she was, given her narrative. But, this is a loss for her too. And at the very least, this is her, as I was saying earlier, this like, oh my God, why do I attract these sorts of people? But there's a lot of health. Mike's, instead of being controlling and aggressive, he's just crying, which I will almost always say, I think, maybe always say, when in doubt, cry. Because it's probably the core of what you're going through, and Mike's doing that. So it's good. Gets it out, gets some compassion from the mom. Ximena gets to see, oh, Mike, he's freaking out because he's sad. He's not freaking out because he's a psychopath. He's freaking out because he's sad. And okay, it doesn't mean I'm going to get back with him, and it doesn't mean I'm going to forgive him for what he said earlier, but yeah, okay, he's sad. So, I'm seeing a lot of health in this moment.
Me da mucha tristeza porque pues lo he visto como alguien más de la familia. Llegó en la vida ella en el mejor momento porque llegó lo de la cuarentena y tuvimos el respaldo de Mike, como tanto ella lo tuvo como nosotros también, porque pues gracias a ella nosotros también comimos.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's been allusions to that fact, but so it sounds like I don't know how much of this is from the show or how much people have been emailing me posts that other people have been making, Ximena included, but I think what happened was Ximena had a job, the pandemic happened, quarantine, she loses her job, I think, and turns to webcam work, and according to reports, immediately met Mike as a customer. They were customer webcam model relationship for a while. Mike approached her and said, I would like to be in a relationship with you or something like that, and I'll pay so that you won't have to do webcam anymore. And if I was to hypothesize, my guess is that for Mike, it's hard for him to meet people for various reasons, most notably, I think, because I think he doesn't believe in himself because of things that have happened to him in the past. And of course, he's a human being, so he has all these romantic attachment needs that have, I'm guessing, never been met, because he basically said he sort of kind of dated someone in high school maybe for a week. I can't remember the exact details, and he's in the 30s now. Anyway, so that's a lot of, I mean, just think about, for y'all out there who, I mean, well, just think about, well, what am I asking you to think about? If you have had a lot of romantic activity from 15 to 35, think about not getting any of those needs met. How much of a buildup of romantic attachment need you would have. So there's that. And of course, I think people often equate Mike's attraction to her as purely sexual. I think 99% of given my understanding of humans and the way that he acts, I think if they never had sex, I think he would still want to be with her. I think he just wants someone to love him. He just wants some affirmation that he's a good enough human being. So, but he wants to have sex too. And a lot of men are socialized to connect through sex because they're not allowed to be vulnerable. But anyway, so not that people don't have sexual needs, but point is, because they do often, not everyone. But the point is that I think Mike was, had a lot of needs. He feels like he's getting a connection with her, whether or not it was reciprocal, whether or not it was mutual, who knows, probably not, because Jimena's probably interacting with a lot of people, I'm guessing. I mean, that's the whole point. But anyway, so he feels a connection with her, and he starts, all this love and attraction and desperation comes flowing out of him, and he's just like, I want to be with her all the time, and he just starts like paying more money. And because that's the model, the business model to some extent. So then he asks her, essentially some ramp up, will you be with me? Will you be exclusive to me or something? I don't want you to be with other people. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a friend, you would say to Mike, like, look, let's get you on Tinder, or let's get you out there. It sounds like you're ready to start dating. Maybe you shouldn't be dating your webcam person, particularly another country. You don't speak each other's language, all that kind of stuff. So, that's what you would hope would happen. It's like, clearly I want a connection. I should probably do more, conducive to success actions rather than trying to marry my webcam model. Anyway, she is open to it, maybe at first, because she's like, works out a deal with him, and she's like, wait, so he's going to give me X amount of dollars, which means I don't even, maybe she said, look, I make X amount of dollars per day. If you can double that, then I won't work. And maybe he did, who knows what the calculation was. But anyway, she gets all this money. The family is suffering too. They all lose their jobs or whatever. And she's like, there's this guy who wants to give me X amount of dollars to be his personal webcam person, or to entertain a potential relationship with. I think this could be good for all of us. I mean, I'm not lying to, we could imagine that happening, and the family's like, oh, thank God we have this income because we're going to lose our house. We're not going to be able to get food. We got kids. They got the kids. So you can imagine that just being a huge deal. And I think that they don't, now they're emphasizing it now, but I feel like, at least for privileged Americans like myself, it's hard to really internalize that. We saw that with Rose as well, and Ed. It's hard to if you've never been through that, and certainly some Americans have, actually. But many Americans, and depending on where you grew up, even in Colombia, is you've never experienced that, just like that paycheck to paycheck, and that worry of, will I be able to eat food? Will I be able to feed my children? Will I, if they get sick, will I be able to afford medicine for, just basic things like that, right? So you can imagine for the whole family, it's just a huge big deal. Okay, so for some of you are like, yeah, duh. But I feel like I want to emphasize this because I think it put pressure on Ximena, right? Of just like, okay, I'm going to convince myself that this is going to work. And at every turn, probably even before meeting Mike, she's like, oh, I don't know. But then maybe she even goes to the family. They're like, we kind of need this right now. Can't you just give it? He's a nice guy. Like, try to make it work. And Ximena, being a caring human being, probably was like, well, okay, yeah, let's maybe I could fall in love. And you just start to convince yourself. And then when they meet in person, there's seemingly very little chemistry, if any at all. She starts to feel this repulsion to him. But she focuses on particular things, like you didn't pick up your underwear, and that's a kind of her repulsion or not lack of attraction to him sneaking out through these complaints, and then he starts to adjust, and she's like, well, okay, let's try to he's really great with the kids, and this would really set up everything well, and so, okay, maybe this will work. But, always thinking, look, I'm an independent woman. Do I need him that badly? No. But my family, you just imagine the situation. I'm confused. There's a romantic thing. There's a cake. He's, proposing. Everyone in the family's so happy. My family's kind of proud of me in this moment, maybe for the first time in a long time. And okay, I guess we can do this. And then he goes home, and the whole fantasy just erased, right? She's just like, wait, what is happening? Probably goes into denial at that point. It's just like, I can't, like, I can't think about this right now. He shows up, and then she's like, what are you doing here? I wasn't expecting, you just that, because of course, if you're in love, you're like, hey, you're here. But her reaction was, I wasn't expecting you. How come you're here? So you just imagine there's a big growing part of her that's just like, what? I'm not into him, But the income and that we need, but maybe at this point, as they're filming, they're starting to work again. There seems to be some implications that the mom is saying that. So anyway, I feel like I need to, for myself, really internalize that reality, because for a lot of privileged individuals, you can just date purely on the basis of romantic needs, not financial or medical or shelter or, your kids. Like, that could obviously influence things, right? And could also make Ximena feel like she's being used by her family. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some kind of resentment there. Like, why am I the one that has to do? Can't y'all pull your? I don't know. I mean, just imagine the pressure that Ximena's under. Anyway.
Pero si la relación está mal, lo mejor es uno terminar, porque lo que empieza mal, mal termina. Gracias por todo, que le vaya bien.
Ximena.
And I think part of the reason why I want to propose the narratives that I do, and I don't know if they're true, is these relationships often get diminished or summarized as he's a creep who is touring. He's a sex tourist creep, and she's a user. I don't want to use the word, but promiscuous lady who is, using him. And I think that is false, one. Two, I think it's mean to these individuals. And three, I think it perpetuates this simplistic, reductionistic pattern, particularly with Twitter, that I see frequently. There'll be this event like Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, and people will just reduce it down to this one thing, like, oh, it's because Jada is a B word, and you're like, huh? Like, that's what you pull out from that probably a very complicated psychological experience and behavioral experience and relational experience for Will and everyone around him. Like, it's just because Jada is a B word, like I feel, and one, and why do I care about that? I care about that because that's how we will frame our own lives or our partners or the people around us. When your spouse is cold with you, distant from you, we will tend to reduce it to a 128 character thought in our mind. Is that what Twitter is? 128 characters? I just figures that because of the whole bit byte thing. Anyway, that, can you tell I don't use Twitter? We have a Twitter, but I don't understand Twitter. I don't really get it. I get Instagram, I get Facebook, I get Reddit particularly, but Twitter, I'm just like, I don't even understand the interface. I'm like the other day, anyway, point is, I'm just old, it's just, and I don't use it, but the point is that where a partner is, say we get in a fight with our partner, we have a little scuffle verbally, and we will conclude, my partner is doing this to me because he is a narcissist, or whatever, these kinds of reductions. And it's possible, it's true, it's probably not. And it doesn't really service solutions if that's the issue, right? It's probably complicated. You probably have committed unhealthy behaviors and thoughts. Your partner has too. And you're a human being with love and goodness and, brightness, love to give. And all that is true. It's a lot of things. It's not a tweet. It's a book. It's a set of books that you would have to write to fully describe why the two of you got into a fight. And I feel like to fully understand Mike and Ximena, I want to demonstrate that, because as a therapist, that's one of the reasons why I'm rambling again, but who cares at this point? You're probably not. I've probably alienated everyone at this point. No one's watching to this point. And if you are, thanks for sticking with me. As a therapist, one of the greatest things that I loved and have loved, one of the reasons why I wanted to become a therapist was because I get to really find out who people are. Because often I would go to parties and I would be having a chat with someone and I didn't like small talk. And so I would ask these very personal questions or stimulating questions, deeper questions, because I just felt like I only have so many hours on this planet and I don't want to waste it just on the surface of stuff. I want to get into stuff. I'm curious what makes people tick. Who are you? I don't want to know the persona. I want to know the real you. And as a therapist, when I decided to become a therapist, I was like, I bet you I can really get into that. And I was correct in that I can. Clients want you to do that as therapists. They want you to get into. They want you to be curious and not reduce them to a tweet and to really know them fully. And then I discovered later on that my curiosity about people actually has a healing power, and that has been proven through empirical research. When we study therapy and what makes it work, one of the common factors is interest in the other person and in the client, having them tell their story, having genuine curiosity about their experience, not just who they are, but what their experiences are. I'll go on this other jag just for a second. We'll get back to the show. I did a research project on, I'll spare you the details. I've talked about it before. I did a whole deep dive on it, actually. It was a recent rerun. It's called Seasoned Therapists' Experience of Difficult Clinical Moments or something like that. I think you have to be a patron. Let's do it. Maybe not. Anyway, point is that I initially was interested in researching why or what the experience was like for therapists as they went through a difficult moment with a client, where a client was aggressive with them or had a meltdown in session or something. I just asked therapists, I interviewed them on what it was like to have a difficult moment in session. And I was just trying to get the information so I could write my research paper and I could, get published and all that kind of stuff. But what I didn't think would happen, didn't predict, was every single person, every therapist, and these are seasoned therapists, therapists with 15 plus years experience. And I would interview them for, 1 or 2 hours. And the research type is called phenomenological research. It's a qualitative type. And you're trying to get at the participant, the research subject. You're trying to get at their experience. So I never inserted my own assumptions. I was always asking them probing questions. So what was that like for you? What did that feel like? What was going through your head? Would you think back on that? What do you think? And this is a phenomenological way of actually conducting therapy as well. It's also just a way of listening to your friends and family. Just always asking, what was it like for you? Because it's anyway. So I would ask, those questions, and I'm being recorded. I'm videotaping everything, and I was being very purposeful not to insert my own assumptions, to always think, well, am I really getting the full picture? Do I really understand what they're trying to tell me? Because the way people describe their experiences, they don't often go into depth. They'll tell you the surface because typically we learn through experience that people don't care or they don't seem to care about our true. We're just trying to tell. We don't want to bore people, and so we will leave out. And we also, maybe from lack of attunement from our childhood, we don't really even know what we just tell the surface because that's what registers for us. But there's a vast sea of physical, emotional, spiritual experiences that are happening, particularly when we're going through important moments like this one. Anyway, so I'd ask these questions, and all the participants, I think, but many of them, if not all, afterwards would say, that was really helpful, because the idea of the research was these participants in the research, they're just supposed to give me information and I walk away and I read a report. The research project was not intended to help the participants. That was not the intention, but a majority, if not all, reported that it did help them. They're like, I've never had a chance to really, and these are therapists who have presumably been in a lot of therapy themselves, and they would tell me, or consultation, supervision, chances to talk about difficult moments. Usually when you have a big difficult moment, you consult to get supervision. They were all telling me that they felt more closure around it. They felt better around it. They felt like they understood it more. They felt more resolved on the difficult moments. Sometimes this was an event that happened 25 years earlier in their career. And so why am I telling you this right now? I'm telling you this because when we reduce things to a tweet and we reduce other people to a tweet, we are not taking the time to really understand the other human being as fully as they are. And to Mike and Ximena, if you're watching the show, it doesn't have an impact on them in all likelihood unless you're bullying them online, which I hope none of you do. A lot of people do. But our partners and our children and our parents and our coworkers and our employees and our bosses, these are people that are, we're in a relationship with these people. And so to reduce ourselves and them to a tweet instead of acknowledging the volumes that comprise the human experience denies the ability to understand other people, and also which gives us an opportunity to react more accurately to that human being, but also for ourselves, that we comprise of volumes. We are not worthless. That's the tweet. The tweet is, I am worthless. And, or the tweet is, I can't do this. Or the tweet is, no one loves me. Or the tweet is, I'll never get what I want, or something, And instead of realizing the reality that, there's a lot there. And so, yeah, I'll just end there.
Planeando un futuro, y por todas estas cositas de Mike, todo se fue a la basura. Yo sé que sus sentimientos por mí son verdaderos, pero no cambia nada la decisión que tomé.
She's saying, I know he's in love with me, but it doesn't change the decision that I made. Yeah, absolutely. I think she is fending off some guilt, some like, oh, I feel bad for him, but she doesn't want to go there. She's like, well, it doesn't change the fact that I don't want to be with him. Just getting back to what I was saying earlier, just a little bit more, is to put a final point on it, is when you think about yourself, and if you have a partner or a best friend, or someone you're in close relationship with, maybe your kid or your parent. So just think about two people, you and another person, and really feel inside that you comprise, what's the word for it? Multitudes. There are volumes and volumes of encyclopedias that comprise who you are. Not just your memories, but your experiences, how you feel, the defenses you have, the traumas you have, the glory you have, the things you've accomplished, the things what make you a good person. And the other person, whoever you're thinking about, your partner, your friend, whoever, they have volumes as well. Really try to think about that, because I think if you can really embody that for yourself and your partner, I don't know about you, but for me, it makes me appreciate that we are complicated people. We have a lot of hopes and dreams. We have a lot of ups and downs. We have a lot of anxieties. We have a lot of pain. We have a lot of happiness and joy. And we can, I guess what I'm getting at is another idea in empirical research, another topic in empirical research regarding what works in therapy is authenticity. And there's various different ways of doing this, but being authentic yourself as a therapist and recognizing and trying to get at and trying to help someone be authentic as a client. So, because when I think about the multitudes that I am and the multitudes that you are, I think, wow, we spend a lot of time tweeting the surface, and that is not healthy. And empirical research, this isn't just some new age crystal stuff. This is science. When we actually look at what works in human lives and in therapy, authenticity, and again, authenticity, it's a very broad concept, but it has to do with this idea of recognizing the depth of yourself and other people, and recognizing the full you, that you're not, you go to work and you're just like, okay, I got to please the boss. Okay, I have a customer. Okay, I've got to do this thing. Okay, the kids want food. Okay, my partner wants to go for a walk. Okay, you're just like always kind of on the surface, and that's fine. But there's also all these other things happening for us. And to recognize that, and one of the best things you could do is just like, instead of just going, oh my God, it's like so much, Dr. Kirk Honda is talking about all these, I don't know, where to begin is the here and now. This is the humanistic therapy ideas. Who are you right now? What are you right now? What are you experiencing right now? Sometimes you can have body awareness. Okay, my feet are on the ground, my butt's on the chair, my arms are doing these kinds of things, my neck is doing this thing. I can hear, I think, a plane in the distance and the fan of my computer. I have the lights and the camera and y'all, and there's Ximena, and really focusing on that instead of going to the future, instead of going to the past, instead of going to what you're supposed to be doing later, instead of going to some shame or something. You just focus on who you are. That's kind of a good place to start with. And when we can be authentic, there's so many different things that are happening. One is, at the very least, we're accepting ourselves, because to be you, to be here, to be now, to be yourself, you could consider there's two parts to you. There's the you, and then the you that lets yourself be that. And when you let yourself be authentic and free to be yourself, and to be free from worry and from, or at least not think, mindfulness plays, not thinking about what you're screwing up, or that thing you did yesterday that you're ashamed of, or the anxieties of the future. When you allow yourself to be that, just be you, there's a part of you that's saying it's okay. You don't have to. You'll get to that later. It doesn't mean you just act like the future and the past don't exist. But for right now, for some portion of the day, you're okay right now. You can be you right now. You don't have to be a workhorse. You don't have to be constantly productive or fending off possible bad futures all the time. You could do that some of the time, but you don't have to do it all the time. It's okay to be just you. And so at the very least, you're letting yourself. The other thing is it gets you in touch with your needs and your emotional state, which we have to be paying attention to. We have to be, in order to make ourselves happy, think about your kids. When your 4-month-old is crying, it's imperative that you understand what type of crying that is. Is that uncomfortable? Is that tired? Is that hungry? If you can't differentiate for your 4-month-old what that crying is, you could literally cause physical harm to your child. They could literally die. I mean, presumably. Now, we're programmed evolutionary wise, to really pay attention to that and to, figure it out. But not every parent does for various reasons. But point is that you have, in order to make that child happy, you have to know what's happening. You have to be attuned. You have to know what that child's going through. And of course that translates, they're 4 years old, they're able to talk usually. And so you have to always know, are they hungry? What's going on with them? Well, the same applies to you. You have needs. Your needs don't turn off when you turn 20 or 18. You have the same needs that you had when you were 4 months old. You have the same needs you had when you were 6 years old. If you've never had those needs met, then you have a lot more needs. So in order to be happy and satisfied and content, whatever you want to say, you have to meet your needs. To meet your needs, you have to know your needs. And to know your needs, you have to be in the here and now. And to be in the here and now, you have to focus on yourself. And you have to know yourself. And you have to take the time. You can't be constantly thinking about what's going on outside and okay, what if that bad thing happens? How can I fend that thing off? Who's requiring me to do something? Okay, be responsible. Don't be irresponsible. But you matter too. And when you do this, not only are you, but you can also now communicate that the way a 4-year-old cries. You can now communicate that to your partner and to others around you, like, I need this because I spent 5 minutes in the here and now, or I went to a humanistic therapist and I spent 50 minutes in the here and now, and I know, because I never pay attention to myself, I have this need. And there's this whole American thing around like, it's self-indulgent, it's selfish. No, it's not. It's not. Is it selfish for a 4-year-old to cry when they're hungry? Is it selfish for a 7-year-old to say, I would like another cookie, please, because that makes me happy? Is it selfish? No, it's just being you. The cookie is a bad example. You get my point. Anyway, it's not a bad example. It's not a poignant example. A better example, is it selfish for a 7-year-old to ask for a hug? That's better. No, it's just knowing your needs and asking for it. If you're 25, if you're 45, you have all the same needs. And so not only that, but you also, man, am I yammering today? Also, you recognize what's going on in this other person. Not only because you're concentrating on authenticity in the here and now, you're like, oh, other people have this, but you also have the capacity to give because you have presumably known your needs and had them met. And now you're relaxed and you can now actually pay attention more readily to other people. In fact, that's a big part of being a therapist, is putting your own oxygen mask on first and getting your own emotional life in order, because to be a truly loving, compassionate therapist or professor, one has to have or be striving for emotional fulfillment yourself. And a lot of therapists forego that because therapists often come from childhoods where they were the ones taking care of everyone and put themselves in the back burner. And I've worked with trainees and supervisees and colleagues who do this, and they break at the seams because they're giving, and never paying attention to themselves. So that's what I'll say about that.
We've had this great connection this past year and even on the first trip that it just makes giving up that much harder. This past year was the happiest I've ever been. And I really haven't loved anyone as much as I love Ximena.
That's consistent with what he said before, that this is a whole new experience for him, that for the first time in his life, he feels love and acceptance and hope for the future, maybe, feels maybe even like a normal person. It's not uncommon to feel like there's something extremely defective and unusual about you if you don't have a relationship and a family, because of stigma in our society, but also just because you're just never getting any of your romantic companionship needs met. So yeah, this was the best time of his life. And I hope that he can believe in himself such that he can date people in a more conducive, likely to work sort of way, people in his town, that kind of thing. The other thing is I hope that he gets help for his tendency to engage in the, intimate partner aggressive behavior that he exhibited last week. All right, well, I want to thank everyone for liking this video or any of my videos. It warms my heart to actually look at the stats every day and go like, did people like this? And when you like it, it gives me hope that I'm doing the right thing. So you can also subscribe and all those other things. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.